Well, howdy, folks. This is Poet Tim Staley here with another installment of the poets I'm reading. So, folks, I'm deciding to premiere these videos on Toxagram as there's just so much trash on social media. And I thought maybe, especially considering we got an election cycle we're being swept into, I thought it might be nice to present some poetry books to you. I'm not really coming at this at you as an English teacher. English teachers are responsible for just killing so much poetry. If there is any joy to be found in poetry, it's definitely not somebody telling you what it means. I promise. You know, I'm wondering like, hey, maybe you want to tell me I found somebody else on Toxagram that's talking about poetry books. You should watch that. I don't even know if I would. I don't even know if I would watch that. If I don't even know that I would watch this. But I'm certainly having a fun time thinking about this and sharing these books with you. Y'all, my to be read pile, my aspirational pile, this isn't, can y'all even see the bottom? I mean, I have like a poetry book problem. Okay, so I got many of these videos to come. Just you wait. I just want to talk about two books today. The first one is this 1994 The October Palace by Jane Hirshfield. Now, Jane Hirshfield was 41 when she wrote this book in 1994. Hirshfield was born in New York City. I liked that book, Ledger, that she put out right before the pandy. And this book, I don't know, man. I didn't love it a ton. Now, I finished it. I loved it enough to finish it. I'd say my main thing that I struggled with in this book is that I couldn't figure out what the occasion was for so many of these poems. Now, she had like 4 or 5 foundations and organizations paying her to sit and write poetry. Public school poets don't really know what that's about. But, so I don't know if she's sitting there and she's just she's struggling to have occasions. However, the poems I did like, I understood why the poem was being written. For example, a hawk cried, or a flower opened, or her husband is at the bedside of his dying mother and they're talking on the phone. Like, I understand like why those poems got written. However, there's one poem in here that kicked major booty. Now, I was learning about this French poet named Paul Oulard. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but this French poet, he said, there is another world, and it's inside this one. So I got that cooking around in my head. That's a fun thing about literature. You hear something out there in the world, and then they start to make these connections. My connections aren't fun for you, but they're fun if you can make your own connections. Again, like poetry is not a math problem. It's not about getting a sum. It's all about that equal sign. And our equal sign doesn't have to be different. I pray to God it's not. I pray to God you have your own equal sign. So check it though. I really like this little poem. This little poem right here, worth reading this whole book. I'm going to share this little one with you. It's called Within This Tree. Within this tree, another tree inhabits the same body. Within this stone, another stone rests. Its many shades of gray, the same, its identical surface and weight. And within my body, another body whose history, waiting, sings, there is no other body. It sings, there is no other world. So I love how this poem circles back like a crazy 8 Ouroboros eating its tail in the infinity sign. Like it's like, in this body, there's another body. And then at the end, there is no other body. Thank you, poetry. Now, one other book, man, I really like this one. Holy crap. Did I like this book by Mathew Dickman? I didn't want to confuse him with Michael Dickman, his twin brother, who's also a poet. Did I like this book by Mathew Dickman because we were born in the same year? Both of us were born in 1975. This book came out in 2018 when Dickman was 43. And this poet also seemed to be getting a lot of grants from foundations like the Guggenheim while he wrote this book. He says so in the back pages here. But this book had a very intense and deliberate focus, which was on his teenage years growing up in a sketchy neighborhood in Portland. Really sketchy stuff happening here. A lot of skateboarding. That's not necessarily the sketchy part. The skateboarding, skinheads, disappeared fathers, drunk mothers, violence against the mother perpetrated by the son, verbal abuse from the mothers. But I found it very compelling. And this is a book, and this rarely happens. I read this in one sitting. Just absolutely tore through this thing in one sitting. This one, no. This one, a couple weeks. But this one sitting. And I'm going to read the first poem to you. Woo, this has a really striking image, the way this book launches. And you can kind of get an idea of this book. And maybe you'll like this style. Teenage Riot is the name of this poem. I looked it up. That's a song by Sonic Youth. All of us were boys, only some were taller or already in high school, and almost nothing else mattered but to learn some new trick. To pull off something we saw in a skate video, wind cutting around our bodies when we flew off the lip of a ramp, grabbed the board and twisted into a 180, kicking a leg out and landing it. The only way to run through the neighborhood was to run through it together. Flipping off cops and skinheads. I almost don't even remember girls, but a vague sense of taste, of bubblegum, and how they smelled so different from us. Sitting in some kid's basement, drinking his parents' vodka. We grew out our bangs, moved in a pack, jumped in when some one of us got jumped. So when a man we had never seen before came up and started beating on Simon, one of us dropped his skateboard, walked over to the man like someone walking into a bank, and stabbed him. The man, startled, sat down right there on the asphalt, right in the middle of his new consciousness, kind of looking around. What a striking image there. This man who's doing violence to teenagers, and then one of the teenagers stabs him, and then he just sits down and looks around. Woo, that got me going. Really like that. Highly recommend this book, Mathew Dickman. You end up meeting these different characters. For example, one of these characters you meet is Caleb. You learn, there's several Caleb poems in here. You learn about Caleb having living in a house where his dad's beating up on the mom, and then he's sort of like spooning the mom to comfort her after she's getting beat up by the dad. You see Caleb randomly enacting violence on other kids. You see Caleb getting a tattoo of a swastika by the end of the book. Caleb sort of turns into a skinhead, anti-Semitic Nazi skinhead at the end. So I just found this book really, really powerful. It was a great read. It published by Norton in 2018. It's called Wonderland by Mathew Dickman. See y'all next time. Thank you so much for listening.